First of all, thanks so much for having me. So sorry and appreciate your patience. I did have a slide presentation. I know they're still working on it, but I'm going to be just talking from it, giving you my talk just from the presentation. Unfortunately, you'll not be able to see any of the images, or I had a couple of videos in there as well. So you just get me today. So hopefully that's okay. But first of all, I just want to get a sort of feel for the room. I know in here there are hospitality majors, there's business, there's entrepreneur. Who's in hospitality here? Okay, great. And then business, and then entrepreneur. Awesome, okay. A great mix of folks. In regards to just, I guess, class, freshmen. Any freshmen in here? And sophomore, and junior, and senior. Okay, all right. So a lot of upperclassmen. Okay, great. So I'm going to just, I know you guys have classes after this, so I want to be respectful of your time. What I'm going to do is tell you a little bit about me and my path and my journey and sort of what my career has been like. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Alaska Airlines. I'm full disclosure, usually when I'm asked to speak to groups, I talk a lot about Alaska, and I didn't want this to be a commercial for the airline. However, you did invite the sales and marketing guy to come and talk to you guys today. So you're going to get a little bit of that. But if in case, in the rare off chance that you don't care about Alaska, my journey and my career isn't all that exciting, I did want to spend a little bit of time at the end talking about a skill that I feel is really important in your life, both professionally and socially and just in general. So hopefully you have something to take away from today that you can use throughout your college career, but also going into your professional life. So with that, hope that sounds good. And then also, I'll leave a little bit of time at the end for questions. If you have any questions, feel free to chime in as I speak too. I'm completely open to that. I probably do better versus me just sort of talking the entire time. You don't want me speaking for 45 minutes, just as I don't want to be speaking for 45 minutes. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them up. We can answer them then, or feel free to jot them down and we can take them at the end. No question is sort of off the table or dumb or anything like that. I really want to be able to answer any questions you have about the industry, about my career, or anything that you'd like to ask. So just to really start about my background. So I'm, as Chase said, born and raised here. Grew up in Mililani and Wahiawa. I actually went to the Mililani High School, got my graduated from high school there. But I grew up in Wahiawa, actually, in a small family business. It was a bakery, and it closed probably before most of you were born, so you wouldn't remember it. It was called Chan's Cake Shop. But that was really the first time that I fell in love with customer service and hospitality, and really understood the power of relationships and personal connections. As Chase said, I went to the University of Hawaii at Manoa, graduated from the School of Travel Industry Management. I had an emphasis in transportation. While there, I did go to the Honolulu Community College. At that time, they had a program that was focused on commercial aviation. And I knew I loved the aviation industry, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in it. So I thought, hey, why not learn how to fly? And so I took one semester, got my private pilot's license. It was a beautiful and great thing to learn how to fly here in the state of Hawaii. But eventually found myself really wanting the more people side of the business, and that's why I eventually went into travel industry management and got my degree from the university. While I was at the university, and this is sort of one, I guess, piece of advice or takeaway that I hope you get from this talk. College, as you probably know, is one of the most exciting and interesting times of your lives. And it's something that you should really take full advantage of, all opportunities that come your way within college. And in order to do that, you really have to be open, you really have to be engaged and involved. And so while I was at the university, I did a lot of the student clubs, but we also had a student-run event that was 100% student-run. I got involved with that. It was called Tim Night. The Tim School doesn't do it anymore, but it's something that I found really got me not only involved in school, but it also got me out into the industry and got me sort of known from an earlier age. That I was really serious about the industry and I wanted to have a long career within it. So after the university, I got my first job at the Hawaii Visitors and Convention Bureau, and that was actually, I knew I wanted this job. It was an event coordinator within their Developing International Markets department, and at that time, the Visitor Bureau here in Hawaii had controlled all markets. So they had control over promoting Hawaii in the US, but also all across the world. So Japan, Canada, any of the major markets that come here to Hawaii. And so what I had was all of the markets other than Japan, Canada, and the US. And so it was a fantastic job, one that I got to really travel the world, promoting Hawaii, promoting this place that I love and that I grew up in, working with the 20 plus worldwide offices that we had, and receiving travel writers that came in that wanted to do stories on Hawaii, and also doing consumer promotions and trade shows all across the world. Unfortunately, that job, it was a time in the government or state government when they were looking at the Visitor Bureau and looking at different ways of doing things. And so they took the international markets out of the Visitor Bureau. And so I eventually lost my job. I was laid off and then found myself looking for the next step. And that step was actually to go into state government. And at that time, Governor Linda Lingle was in office, and she wanted to have someone really look at tourism. And so she appointed a cabinet level person, her name is Marsha Wienert, as her tourism liaison, or sort of an advisor to her in regards to tourism issues. So it was a new and exciting office, and I got to be the person that served that person. And so I did basically everything that she couldn't do or didn't want to do. And that had to do with everything related to tourism policy, anything that had to do with the tourism industry and state government, and maybe really making that bridge is really what I did. And so, sure. Sorry, just a brief intermission.
Is your thing?
It was in there. Where was it? Where did it go? Oh yeah, it's in there.
Tell you what, I'll sit down here and keep working on it.
Okay, all right. So I often joke that I stay in jobs until they kick me out. So the first job, the Visitor Bureau, unfortunately, I got laid off of that, and then I went into, after that, the state of Hawaii. I worked for the governor. As you might know, whenever you work for the governor, you serve at the leisure and pleasure of the governor as long as he or she is in office. And so I stayed all the way until the end of the Lingle administration, and when the administration changed over into the Abercrombie administration. So that was the end of 2010. And at that time, I was in my early 30s. I didn't really know what I wanted to do still. And so, there's really no pressure, don't worry, about deciding what you want to do for the rest of your life right now, because even in your 30s, or I was at least, unsure. And so there were a lot of different options. I was thinking about going back to school. I was thinking about going into hospitality, something that I had never done before. And interestingly enough, there was an opportunity with Alaska Airlines that came up. And so Alaska at the time had just started service here to the state of Hawaii, about 2 years earlier than that, and was really looking for someone to tie them to this community. And so it was all of the relationships and network that I had created in my previous job that lined me up, one, to even know that the job existed, but two, to also get me an interview. And so I had applied, got an interview, it was kind of a long road. Actually, the first round of interviews, unfortunately, I did not get selected. And there were 3 people that got elevated to Seattle, which is where our corporate office is. And I was bummed, obviously. But it's sort of a story of never really, giving up. So after that round, they had decided that those 3 would not be moving on, and they looked again at the pool of applicants. And then it was really my network that helped. I started reaching out to everyone that I knew that I worked with in the tourism industry. And I said, hey, if you ever worked with Alaska Airlines and you have a good relationship with anyone at Alaska, because I knew no one at Alaska Airlines at that time. A lot of people didn't, actually. And if you like me and you think that I would do a good job, please let them know, or please let your contact know. And so that started happening, and the recruiter called me back one day and said, you either know a lot of people or you're throwing people at us. And I said, well, it's probably a little bit of both, but it was something that, oh, is it going up? Okay, perfect. It was something that I remember to this day as something where I was really trying to be as authentic and just good at what I did, and fortunately the network of folks that I built over time helped with that. So I'm going to let's see. Thanks again for your patience, everyone. Okay. So, talking about Alaska. So, who has flown Alaska Airlines? Okay, that's a great amount of people. Thank you very much. Number one, for flying with us. Hopefully, it was a good experience. If not, then come up and talk to me after. But so one of the big things that happened with Alaska Airlines, and you may have seen this or heard about this, back in 2016, we announced that we were merging or acquired Virgin America. And so when that happened, a lot of people in the industry sort of perked up because, at face value, Alaska Airlines and Virgin America were 2 very different companies, 2 very different brands, 2 very different products, right? And so when we announced the merger, a lot of folks were like, it's like, getting your really good auntie and your teenage son to go into business together, right? And so we launched this campaign called This Is Different, or Different Works, and really talking about how 2 seemingly different or opposite things can make a great combo, right? So we had electricity and guitars, which is a surprisingly great combo, and bacon on a donut seemed like a weird combo too. But this is how different works. And so we found that it was a really effective campaign and really got people thinking around the fact that even though we were very different companies, our cultures were very much the same, right? Very innovative companies, very customer focused. We had 2 companies here that people actually use the word love when they talk about it, right? In the airline industry and business, you might know that, especially in recent years, there's been a lot of just negative PR around airlines and the treatment of passengers and whatnot. And we've been fortunate, and so has Virgin America, that we have passengers that really love our companies and love us. And so it seemed like a really nice marriage of the 2 companies. So now we're the largest, I just want to make sure it's up there. Now we're the largest airline or carrier on the West Coast and the 5th largest US domestic airline. You can see some of the stats there. About 23,000 employees now we have, 1,300 departures, 44 million guests a year, about 300 aircraft now throughout our 115 cities in the US, Mexico, Canada, and Costa Rica. And then we're not a part of any one global alliance, like SkyTeam or One World or Star Alliance, but we do have a global network of partners, of airline partners, about 15 of them, that allow our customers to get to about 900 destinations worldwide. So our business model is really, really simple. It's be relevant, so we want to fly when and where people want to go. We want to offer low fares because that is super important to the consumer, obviously. And we're really only enabling that by our low costs. Build loyalty with our leading service and generous rewards, and it's sort of that virtuous cycle there. And so our model really, and this is an interesting graphic here. So we use 1980 all the way until today. Does anybody know why we use 1980 as kind of a marker? Like what happened right before 1980, 1978, 1979? Anyone? Deregulation, all right. So the airline industry was deregulated by the US government in 1978. And what that meant was that the US government removed all regulations from fares, or setting routes, new entrants into the market. So essentially opening up the airline industry to be a free market, right? And so what that did over time was we saw major consolidation within the airline industry. So you can see over time from 1980 all the way until today, all of the airlines that have come and gone, that have merged into others or whatnot. And also, if you look at the numbers at the bottom, that's domestic market share. So all of the routes or all of the seats that exist within the domestic market, the top four airlines, what percentage they controlled. So back in 1980, about 61%. So it was a good mix of, there were these really big giants, the four, Delta, Eastern, American, and United. But there was still a host of other airlines that had a big piece of the pie. Over time, you see that consolidation was really what happened in the industry, right? Mergers, acquisitions. To today, we're at about 85% of all domestic market shares controlled by the top four, American, Delta, United, and Southwest, meaning we at number 5 are only at 6%. We represent 6% of all seats flown in the US. And if you can imagine then all of the other airlines too, ones like Hawaiian Airlines, JetBlue, Allegiant, Spirit, Frontier, we all sort of fight over that remaining 15% market share. So the other interesting thing, obviously, then, right, is if we were to merge with all of those airlines other than Southwest, United, Delta, and American, we would still be smaller than each one of those airlines. We would still be number 5, which is really shows you that it is a consolidated industry, and we have to do things better and different in order to survive. So over the last 10 years, we have outpaced the growth of the big four, plus JetBlue. And so their average growth over the last 10 years was about 4.5%. We've grown at about 9%. And in the last 5 years, even more so, their growth has shrunk to about 2.7%. We're at now 7.5%. And so we are growing faster. We've grown faster. Obviously, the merger with Virgin America helped to do that, but organically, we've also been growing. And so that growth really is what makes us nationally relevant. Before, even as recent as 2001, I know that's almost 20 years now, but as recent as 2001, we were really about north-south service. So our major hub is in Seattle, Portland, sort of the Pacific Northwest. We also serve California. Obviously, we serve the state of Alaska. But we did a lot of north-south service up and down the West Coast. We went down to Mexico. We had one route that went sort of across the country, and that went to Chicago. Fast forward to today, or just last year, we're at 115 destinations. We have a really West Coast focus still, so all of our major hubs still on the West Coast, but we really built out our Hawaii service, we really built our cross-country service as well. Still also maintaining that Mexico service. We have now been flying here to Hawaii for 11 years, and the service has been really fantastic and offering great options for both local people, but also our visitors from the mainland. And so, again, our 15 international partners outside of our route network give our customers access to about 900 destinations worldwide. So let's look at this chart in regards to the growth of air travel. So looking at 1978, which is when airline deregulation happened, what deregulation was supposed to do was bring fares down, which is what it did. If you look at, and this is even adjusted for real dollars here, $304 was the average price of an airline ticket, a domestic airline ticket in 1978, to where we are today at, or just a few years ago at 206. We're still around there. So the price of an airline ticket definitely came down with deregulation, as did the amount of passengers per year. And so you can see that what deregulation did and where sort of the low fare airlines or the low-cost carriers, as we call them, really survive and really have thrived in this environment. And so these are the things that guests consider when they buy an airline ticket. Pretty intuitive here, right? 32% say it's price, 28% is network, so where we fly, or are we flying where you want to go, 12% on schedule, are we going at the time that you want to go, and then about 30% is brand products, so things like the seat, the onboard entertainment, the food and beverage, all of that sort of stuff. So this is where we're sort of positioned within the industry. You can sort of see here where all of the different airlines are. So what we consider the legacies, United, American, Delta, are on the left side of the screen. Offer a good customer experience, not so affordable fares. Sometimes it can be, but in general and just per DOT data, we know that their fares on average are higher. And one of the reasons for that is with size, their costs are higher, so they have to charge more for an airline ticket. And then if you look on the right side, we're there, Southwest is there, Hawaiian is there, JetBlue. So where, affordable fares, or a nice combination of affordable fares, but also customer experience. So you don't have to give up one for the other. And that's sort of where we are positioned. So really quickly, just going through our advantage, it's really about delivering genuine caring service. It's the low fares, but providing a great value, so you don't have to give stuff up. Generous mileage plan, and what we call our West Coast vibe. So our genuine caring service, amazing, kind-hearted people, safe, reliable service. Hopefully, for those of you who have flown with us, you have seen that just in our everyday interactions. One of our main values is to be remarkable. We really want to create these personal connections in every time you fly with us, and that you feel like we are taking care of you and that we get you as a passenger. Again, the low fares, the great value, what you pay, it's around 20% lower than what the legacy carriers are able to do, but you get that great service, you get the nonstop flights, and you get the benefits that really you care about. This is what the fares look like, where the average fares, again, for the legacies, and where we sort of fall along with Southwest. And we are proud that over the last 7 years, and this is specifically here for Hawaii, and all good news for all of us here, we have offered the lowest fare to Hawaii for the past 7 years. And it's a very consistent level of service and of fare that we've been able to provide. So I just want to take a little bit of time to talk about some of these benefits that you don't have to give up just because you fly with Alaska and are able to pay that lower fare. So it's assigned seating. Not all airlines now are providing that, or you have to pay extra for an assigned seat. A lot of the low-cost carriers are doing that. A lot of low-cost carriers don't have first class. A lot of low-cost carriers don't have a premium class product. We have both of those. So we have 3 classes of service: first class, premium class with a little bit more legroom, and then also a coach product. We have seat power, so we have 110 power and USB power in every single seat, and that's obviously important for all of us, right? I love it because I get to charge my laptop while I'm working, along with my phone. I can charge anything that I want, and it's right there. Everybody has a electrical outlet and a USB port that they can use. On the mainland, we have free texting. So on iMessage, WhatsApp, and Facebook Messenger, you can text from 30,000 feet, and it's all free. That will be coming for our Hawaii service once we roll out satellite Wi-Fi, and that's coming. Actually, our first aircraft was just retrofitted with satellite Wi-Fi, and it will continue all the way through this year with full fleet rollout by the end of the year or beginning of next year. So we'll see all of our aircraft with satellite Wi-Fi, and then the free texting will apply. Right now, we have free movies. We have about 500 movies, TV shows that you can watch for free. It's a server that's on board that streams it to your own device, so you can use your laptop or your mobile device just to tap into the server and access the entire library of movies, TV shows for free. The seats are comfy. They're nice leather seats. We have some fresh food that we refresh every season. And then what's really important for guests, and we are retrofitting all of our aircraft with this, it's these space bins. So I don't know if when you've gone and you've flown recently, a lot of people don't like or get anxious about whether or not they can fit their bags onto the aircraft. We have these space bins now where instead of it loading this way, it loads standing up, and so it can actually fit 50% more bags onto the aircraft or within the cabin than it normally could. And so there's plenty of space for all of your check-in bags, so you don't have to pay that bag fee. Our mileage plan, you can see some of the benefits there, and I'm just going to go through it really quickly. And then what we call our West Coast vibe. It's this warm, welcoming, thoughtful. We really want to be smile-inducing, fresh and modern and unconventional. But the things that we really care about, being locally relevant, it's one of the reasons why I have a job here. We really want to support and be engaged in the communities that we serve, be environmentally conscious. These are just some of the numbers that we have locally in regards to some of the work that I do, making sure that we support our Hawaii charities, our nonprofits, really get involved in the community, and award foundation grants to great causes. Okay, so that's kind of what we mean by West Coast vibe. So for those of you watching, we had to actually cut that out because there's some music in there that we don't have the rights to, and so just want to make sure that we don't put that on the internet anywhere. But that's really what we mean by West Coast vibe, and I think one of the things that came out of our merger with Virgin America was really to push the envelope in regards to marketing and how we show up and who we were, right? I mean, I think it always was sort of there, but we were always kind of on the, not sure if we could go completely into sort of this realm. And I think you see a lot of just energy there. It definitely brought a new excitement to the brand. Now, I just want to spend maybe the last 5 minutes on what I think has been the skill that I use the most probably in the work that I do, and that I think has helped me along in my career. This industry really is all about making personal connections. You've heard me say that. You've also heard me say how, from a brand perspective, we are all about making these personal connections and making these sort of remarkable experiences with folks. But the one thing that I think when you think about personal connections and relationships, it really starts somewhere, right? It starts from square one, and that's this idea of networking, right? So who's been to a networking function? Yeah. Okay. Who likes it? Who likes networking? Anyone? Okay. Yeah. Okay. There's a few. So most people don't. Most people, it's not a natural thing for people, right? And a lot of people also think networking is kind of a dirty word because it's you're going to this thing that is for a purpose. And, in all honesty, it is. It's for everyone is there for the same purpose, and that is to meet new people. Sometimes it's to sell something. Sometimes it's to, create more connections or whatever it may be. But most times, everyone is there for a purpose, and that's not a bad thing. But just a few quick pointers, because I know we're running out of time in regards to networking, because this is a tough subject. It's so tough that there are even some professional organizations that put on these workshops in regards to networking, or people that are in their 30s and 40s that still don't really know how to do it, right? And so number one for me really is about being prepared, right? It's making sure everything from your appearance, you arrive early, because at the beginning of functions, you'll find that it's a lot less busy and it's a lot easier to talk to people and to get into groups of folks versus, you showing up late and then trying to break into conversations that are already happening. Always have some type of business card or ask for a business card so that you have a way to follow up, which obviously is really important with regards to these networking functions. Mentally, really know your purpose. Have something to talk about. What really helps me all the time whenever I sort of psych myself up to go to these things, because I'm actually an introvert by nature, is to think about what exactly people in the room might be wanting to talk about, right? So whether it be a current event, just be up to speed on things. Think about things that interesting things that you did this past weekend or that you did recently. You always want to have something that you can talk about, because that's the weirdest thing is when you go up to someone and they're like, "Hi, how are you?" And they're like, "Good." And then there's nothing, right? Or they're like, "How are you?" And you say, "Oh, so busy," right? Everybody says, "Oh, I'm so busy." And then there's no sort of substance after that. So you just want to make sure you have something to talk about. And then to just be humble, inquisitive, which leads into the next one, and that is to be open and approachable. You always want to make sure that no matter where you are at in your career, in your life, that you're always open and approachable, right? Things like body language, but also being proactive and just generous with both your time, but also just your attention, right? You want to be inclusive. So I see this a lot at different networking functions where groups of people get together and they're all happy because they're talking, right? And they have great conversation. And then there's, stragglers here and there, just like single people, maybe an introvert like myself that are just kind of like hanging by the side. I'm not sure what to do or who to talk to or if anybody wants to talk to me, right? But if you are, most times you might be in that situation at one point in time. And so you just want to make sure that you are generous with your time and with that position of strength, right? And so make sure that invite people in whenever you see that, because it will all come back around, right? And also to be the connector. When you are the connector in these situations, you are really operating from a position of strength, right? If people know that you're that kind of person, then people will want to talk to you as well. Conversation etiquette, there's just a few things there. Names, super important. Make sure that you always remember names. Make it, and if you're bad with names, make it a point to always remember, or do something in your head to make sure that you remember their name. Be present, engaged. Try not to be too salesy. Whenever I'm at a function, I am a sales guy, but I always try to feel people out to see whether or not they have a need for our service. And at that point, that's when I will engage. Let's see, just a few things there. And then lastly, just follow up. Good rule of thumb, follow up within 48 hours. It's great to reference the conversation that you had. Hopefully you had something that was really engaging. You were able to sort of, get through just a surface level conversation and maybe talk about family or about trips or, whatever it is, reference that. And then be able to provide value. So if you have something or provide some kind of service that you think would help them, it's always a good thing to be able to provide that value so that it's something that they will respond to. And then the more and more you do this, it's about building your network, right? Because the more you do it, the more people you know. Most times you'll find that this industry is a small industry. You will see the same people over and over again, and it just builds after that. So it really, just to kind of sum it up, connections, relationship, influence, and all of that create opportunities for you. And I have found that very true in this industry and in my career. And really it starts with that networking ground zero. Just to close, going back to Alaska, our purpose really is creating an airline people love. And we do that by really focusing on our core values, and that's to own safety, to deliver performance, to do the right thing, be remarkable, as you've heard me talk about, and to be kind-hearted. I had a values video in here. We are running out of time, so I'm not going to play that. But what I want to do is if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. If not, I will be around the next few minutes, and we can talk then.
Thank you.